everybody, it's Jenny from the Missouri Star Quilt Company, and I've got a really fun project for you today. This comes from the Barbara Brackman book, and the name of this quilt is called Year's Favorite. And for sure, it is definitely one of my favorites, and I couldn't wait to show you. So let's take a look at this quilt behind me. Man, this looks like you did a lot of work, and it looks like it was so hard. And when I show you how to do it, you're going to be surprised, and you're going to just say thank you. When somebody says, wow, that looks like a lot of work, you're just going to say thank you. So to make this quilt, you're going to need one packet of 10-inch squares, and we have used this fabulous fabric called Dragonfly Dance by Deborah Edwards and Melanie Samra for Northcott Fabrics. You're going to need one packet of background as well, and you'll need a little bit more background for some squares, so another yard that matches this. For your border, it's a nice big 5.5-inch border, and you're going to need 1 1/4 yards. And this backing that we've used, wait till you see it. It's beautiful, and it's a 108. Look at this. Isn't that the most gorgeous piece of backing ever? I love it. I mean, this stuff is so beautiful. All right, so for the backing, you're going to need 2 1/4 yards of a 108. Now, if you use a 45-inch wide fabric, you're going to need about 5 yards with a vertical seam. So this quilt ends up being about 70 by 80. It's a great size quilt. You're going to use only 32 of these print squares because there's some light ones in here that we just didn't want to include in. And so it just makes a really fun project. Let me show you how to make it. Okay, so to make this quilt, it's super easy. It's half square triangles and some squares. So we're going to start with our background square, and we're going to put a background square with a print square, and we used 32 of these print squares because there are some lighter ones in here that we just didn't want to use. And what we're going to do is we're going to put those right sides together, and we're going to draw a line vertically and horizontally on here. So we're going to do this. And this is just a way of we're going to get, well, we have 4 squares times 4, 16 half square triangles out of this. So what we're going to do is we're going to sew on both sides of this line, and we're going to sew all the way around it as well. So this makes a lot of little half square triangles very quickly, and it's very fun. So I'm going to start off by sewing it around. Like this, get to the corner and turn. All right, now we're going to sew on both sides of these horizontal and vertical lines. And dare I say, this is the easy 12. Okie dokie. Now for my brain, and you can see we have there's some tiny little pleats and things like that. It's not going to matter because we're going to cut right through that. And for my brain, you actually can cut this whole thing diagonally both ways and horizontally and vertically, but that doesn't work for my brain. So what works for my brain is taking this and cutting it in half both directions like this, and then using every square individually. So this is now sewn all the way around this, and we are going to cut our half square triangles out of this. Now you can cut this diagonally both directions to get your half square triangles and square them with a square squaring tool, but I am going to use the Clearly Perfect slotted trimmer on this. And to do this, I like to just set my stitch edge on this stitch edge, and I'm going to come in on each side like this, being careful not to cut too far past the center, and I'm cutting these to 3. And so we're going to do this on all 4 sides of all 4 blocks, and we are going to get 16 of these. I said 12 earlier. I meant 16. The easy 16. All right. And you're going to do this to 32 layer cake squares. So just choose your ones that have the most contrast. You know, don't worry about the really light ones, that sort of a thing. Now I would go ahead and do all of these and do all of my squares. So you're going to have a big pile of half square triangles. And I have some done already, so I'm just going to iron these open and throw these, add these into my pile because I completely scrapped this up. All right, so I'm going to grab my other squares over here. I have a bunch done. And one of the fun things about this quilt is that this is just one setting. Well, I think one of the reasons it's Year's favorite is because there's a load of things you can do with it. All right, so to make the block, you're also going to need some 3-inch squares. So you'll have some pieces left over in your 10-inch background squares, and you can go ahead and cut those into 3-inch strips and subcut those into 3-inch squares so you can use them all. And then you're still going to need a few more, so that's where our yardage comes in. And I just cut 3-inch strips and subcut them into 3-inch squares. So now this is my hack for to make this block because every single block is the same. This is what the block looks like right here. So we're doing half square triangle, half square triangle, half square triangle, and a square. So what I do, my hack for quicker to make this happen easier for my brain is I'm going to set a pile of 3-inch squares, and then I'm going to do a pile of my half square triangles, and I'm just going to make these little cutting blocks for me. So it's going to sit right here like this. Let's see, we want this one. And I'm going to go down here and grab some of these green ones, and I'm going to put them right here. And so I will stack a whole bunch of these up because I know that if I sew these two, and then I come back and sew the line across, I've got a block. So you're going to need 4 of these for each block. So let's go ahead and put these together. I'm going to grab my one square, and I keep these real close to my sewing machine because I know they're exactly in the position that they need to be. So the half square triangles are all pointing the same direction with a square in the corner. And so then we're just going to sew these two together. And then I'm going to grab these two down here and sew those together as well. And so then you can clip in between because that's your block. Or you can go ahead and sew a bunch, which is what I like to do. I'm a very rote sewer and I like to sew a bunch of them. And I just know that in between every 2 blocks, I need to cut that thread and then I'm going to sew them together. So let me finish these 4. We'll do these 2 more. And this just keeps it all lined up for my brain. So it's a brain thing. You may want to sew all of these and then sew all of these. It's whatever works for you, but this is what works for my brain. And I'm making little blocks. Oops, see, now this one is turned, so make sure these are all going the right direction. And like I said, you need 4 of these blocks to make the big block. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in between every 2, and I'm going to clip that thread. And then this is going to give me my block. So I'm going to open them up and make sure they're all going the right direction. And see, all of our half square triangles are all going the right direction with our square in the corner. And I'm just going to lay these right sides together. And we're going to sew all these blocks together. And I will, yes, check every one. And the reason I do that is because it's way easier to fix at this point than it is to rip it at a later point. All right, so we're going to go ahead and do all of these. And then we're just going to mix them up and let them be scrappy. And I have some done over here. I'm going to press these out so you can see these. But I want you to see how this block goes together because this is really fun. So this is one of those what if blocks for me. And I'll show you my setting, and then I'll show you some of the other things that we did. All right, so I have 4 of these blocks done right here, clipped together, and they're identical in placement. And so to make my block, this one right here goes to the center, and it's going to make the pinwheel. So we're going to put it in here so it makes the pinwheel. See, there's half my pinwheel. And you'll notice that this little square right here rotates and rotates around. So it's here, 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 and this one will go over here like this. And this makes the pinwheel block right here. So I'm going to go ahead and sew this together so you can see the big block all done. Because it's basically just making these little blocks that are identical. Everyone is the same. And so you don't really get lost on this quilt, even though it looks like you worked so hard. All right, so I'm going to open them up, make sure I still have a pinwheel in the center, and I do. And then I'm going to line these up. Make sure your seams are nesting. One goes to one side, one goes to the other, because a lot of little seams of fabric come together in the middle of this. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're just going to press this nice and flat, and I'm going to look on this side because I felt like I had a few seams that were going a little wonky. So press those down, and then it'll lay nice and flat. And this is our block right here. So let's look at how this goes in the quilt. So here we are right here, and it just fits in there like that. And you're just going to put these together like this, and it just comes together so easy. It's just very, very fun. Now, I have another set of these put together, and I want you to look at some what-if possibilities, because maybe this isn't your favorite setting. All right, so let's look. There's a ton here. I'm going to show you a few. So if we put these together with the white blocks in the middle, look what happens. Now this secondary block out here is going to be very fun, and you have these flying geese that are going to point to each other, and so that's really fun. If we do it so that the triangles come in, that's a whole different look again, and very, very fun. And so it's going to outline this little center square, which I think is fun. What if we do it half and half, like this? So this is why this block is the year's favorite, because there's so many things that you can do with it, and I just think it's really fun. All right, so the quilting pattern I used on this is called Variety, and it's just one of those nice overall patterns that's just really pretty. Again, the quilt comes out to a 70 by 80 size quilt. It's super fun to make, one block, and you can do all these things. And we hope you enjoyed this tutorial on the year's favorite from the Missouri Star Quilt Company. Hey everybody! Every week I give you a new idea, and we are almost 1 million quilters strong. So join us every Friday for a new tutorial, and if you haven't clicked or subscribed, make sure you do that today. See you on Friday.